Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Bruderheim Council meeting for Wednesday, August 16th. Would someone from council be willing to read the land acknowledgement? Deputy Mayor Wayne.
Today, I acknowledge that the town of Bruderheim is located on Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis Nation of Alberta. The town of Bruderheim honors the first peoples of this land. We recognize that we stand upon land that carries the footsteps of the Cree, Métis, and Blackfoot, amongst other nations who have been here for thousands of years. Therefore, the town of Bruderheim has an inherent responsibility to foster healthier relationships with First Peoples and further the calls to action as outlined by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor Wayne. Is there any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda?
Yes, sir. I have additions to Proclamation Rail Safety Week, and I've been asked to add a closed session, FOIP Section 23, Local Public Body Confidences. So I do have a new agenda that shows those. The proclamation for Rail Safety Week will be item 4.2. Then I have added item 5, which is a closed session, and we'll distribute the new agenda once you vote.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other additions, changes, deletions to the agenda from council? Haven't heard none. Call for or looking for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Councillor Ashley.
A motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
Thank you for that motion, Councillor Ashley. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? Haven't heard none. Call for a vote. All those in favor? And the motion's carried. Thank you. So now we can move on to delegations, proclamations, and we're very fortunate this evening. We have Jill and I'm sorry, I don't recall. Danielle to present a resilient rules. Thank you so much for your great work on that. And you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Hoke.
Just to pause to get it onto the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So it's a PowerPoint presentation, Jill, that we're presenting?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And could you just maybe explain what you're presenting, like an overview?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to give an update on resilient rurals over about the last year and a little bit of a refresher just to remind everybody about the objectives of resilient rurals.
Great, thanks. And the partnerships that are all part of it, because it's not just Bruderheim, right?
Correct. So I need to put it in presentation mode. Okay.
Perfect, looks great. Thank you.
Thank you. Just gonna move this little window. So just as a refresher, so Resilient Rurals began as a partnership between the towns of Bruderheim, Gibbons, and Lamont. And it was meant to be a small town approach to climate adaptation and resilience among our communities in Alberta's industrial heartland. From the get-go, Bruderheim has been the lead partner in the partnership, and we've really driven a lot of the work. And we completed a resilience plan in 2020. And within that, we had focused on climate priorities, social priorities, and business continuity priorities. So this just gives you a sense of what those priorities are. So for example, in climate, things like flooding and wildfires, extreme heat, air quality, those kinds of things, those were identified as our community's largest risks. And we have been seeing those things, obviously with air quality, with the wildfires, that's been an issue throughout the province. Things like, the extreme heat, those are things that we have been dealing with. Social priorities, a lot of it has been touching on mental health. That was identified when we first started as something among all 3 of our partner communities that was a focus. As well as just overall preparedness for different events like heat and the cold. And then any implications for our residents for home insurance and local crime reduction, those kinds of things. And these are the different aspects that help us to make our community more resilient overall. And then our business continuity priorities is really just looking at, not quite sure why it moves, is really just looking at, do we have the resources in the formats that we need them if we were to experience an event of some kind. So it's really, general business continuity things in terms of critical files and passwords and access and all that kind of stuff. So those were when we originally created our regional resilience plan, those were our 3 focus areas. Among those pieces, we recognized early on that communication is going to be one of our greatest strengths. Unlike cities who can tackle some of these bigger things with capital projects, small communities, one of their best mitigation measures is strong communication with residents. So that has been a very, very strong focus for us, is communication and how we speak to our residents, our neighbors, our businesses about our 3 priority areas. This graphic it's quite detailed, but it's just to highlight that the work that we have completed since 2016 has been funded entirely by grants. So that's, it began with the Climate Resilience Express program in 2016, and we've received through Alberta Community Partnership Grant, again, the Municipal Climate Change Action Center in their Climate Resilience Capacity Building Program, FCM, and then the Adaptation Resilience Training Program as well. So that one's quite detailed, but so the progress over the past year, just to give you an update since the last time I was able to share with you. We were lucky enough to be able to hire Danielle Hauk, who's here with us this evening, and also Claire Croning. They were our project assistants, and they've done a lot of work for us. And I joke all the time that they've helped to make all my resilient rural's dreams come true. And so over the last year, our focus has been on continuing with our communications toolkit, which has been really successful. We've gotten a lot of attention and requests from other communities and organizations. The Rural Assist Program pilot and launch, so the development of that program. And that is, again, to identify and support our vulnerable populations and looking to see how we can best support and provide resources and communication in times that will affect them. Additional preparation work of the Cooling Center Guide, which is to help us address those extended periods of heat in our communities. The development of a mock scenarios for staff and residents, which we'll be implementing at a future date, and continuation of our Rural Showcase campaign. So Rural Showcase was an ability for us to network. We've made some really great connections with other organizations and communities in the province. And in other provinces as well, just showcasing what work is being done in this area. So these graphics are just to give you a sense. These screenshots are taken from our website. And so we've recently pulled all of our documentation and communication materials into downloadable kits so that other communities or our community groups can use them to send out and spread awareness on the risks that we may be experiencing in our community. So things, we have summer hazards and winter hazards, climate change in the prairies, that kind of thing. This is an example of the Rural Showcase on our website. The Rural Mental Health Project and the Rural Development Network. Those are just two of the several network community connections that we've made. And those are two of the features that we have. There's several more. New work that was also completed in the last year that we weren't originally anticipating is we've started with developing a resilient rurals model so that we can share what we've learned and our progress with other communities and create that path that we really set out to create for small communities by small communities. And then we've also done some work with native plant species resources, and that's really tied to flooding and water supply shortages. So these are just some examples of the graphics that were created, again, on the drought tolerant species and reducing flood risks. So moving forward, we're currently in another period of funding from the Municipal Climate Change Action Center. So that's how we are lucky enough to maintain employment with Danielle. And she's currently working on a cross-cultural food sovereignty project where we're working with Indigenous and non-Indigenous organizations and communities and looking at food sovereignty in our region and in Alberta. And it's actually supporting Danielle's practicum with the U of A, so we have that linkage as well with the research institution. And moving forward, starting in September, we have again been successful with the Adaptation Resilience Training Program, which is through the U of A. And we will be able to hire 2 staff. Danielle will hopefully be one of them. And we get to hire recent university grads and again, get them, their wages are supported and we get them for about 8 months. And so their focus will be just continuing to implement our existing projects and looking at some other focus areas as well.
Thanks, Jill. Question, if
Sure.
I may, before you move on to the next page, could you just touch on what you really mean when you talk about food sovereignty?
Absolutely. I'm actually going to hand it over to Danielle because our next section is to give some more information on that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Oh, you do? Okay.
All right, so first off, I'll start with this graphic because I think it's very important for all of us to understand that there are a lot of great things about Alberta, but during the pandemic, we were the most food insecure out of all of Canada's provinces. And I personally, knowing how much economic value is here, to me, that does not seem right. So this was definitely an area that has been passionate, or I have been passionate about for quite some time. And this is an area where rural communities and Indigenous communities especially tend to experience more barriers to food security than people in the city because we don't have a massive food bank right next door that we can go to. Not that it's easy for those people, but there are additional barriers living out here. So food insecurity is a problem. It's been a problem as long as humans have pretty much had food. So one way that we can address this is through food sovereignty. And to define that, food sovereignty goes one step further than food security. Food security is just having enough food, but food sovereignty goes into having quality food, having nutritious food, having some influence over the food systems themselves, such as the production. Like, is our food produced locally? Can we meet those actual food producers? Do we value those food producers? Are we paying them as much as they deserve? And so it's a complex topic, but there are many different ways to act in this area. And so I think it's a really neat goal for a small town to try and pursue food security beyond just handing out food, beyond just having food hampers or providing funding, but going into, okay, how can we strengthen the community so that our food system itself is one that is designed where food insecurity is less of a risk. So our project kind of tackles that. It's a 3-stage approach. The first step is data collection or our engagement phase, and this involves going to different communities. We met with Phyllis and Sherry earlier this summer to talk about Bruderheim's goals. We've met with Lamont as well, and we're also meeting with nonprofit organizations, different food innovators, and just a handful of different actors in the food system to gain a better understanding of what is being done already. I know Bruderheim has been in contact with Community Futures to discuss how the food system is working in Alberta, especially central northern Alberta. We were able to meet with them too, and we're very excited about continuing collaboration with them. We've also spoken to permaculture experts and like, okay, how can we maybe grow food in such a way where it's not as much work or it's not as much stress on the environment as traditional industrial agriculture. And again, at this stage, it is basically just learning as much as we can about where we are currently and what goals are there and who may want to partner with us in future. Because as we've mentioned, partnership, cross-cultural collaboration is a really important part of this project. And because Indigenous and rural communities experience many of the same challenges, we believe that this partnership is really valuable to both of us. Our next stage will...
Danielle, sorry to interrupt. I believe Councillor George has a question.
Talking about this, is there any work being done? Is there any work being done in this stage 3 approach to bring industry back into the province that has already left? I'm going to go to the packing plants that we had. We have so much raw material that exits out of this province. And when we get it back, it costs us 3 times as much as when it left. If we want food stability, we got to keep our processing here. We got to keep our product here, and we got to keep our costs down. And that's what I feel is one of the things that is missing in your presentation.
That is definitely one part of a very large picture. And I have recently, in this data collection phase, also conducted an extensive literature review on how we can assess food systems and how resilient they are, and whether food is being produced and packaged and processed locally is a huge part of that. The question is that something that's within Bruderheim's capacity to implement? Yes, we can connect people more directly to farmers, but can we ourselves bring back a packaging plant? I don't know. It's not something that's yet been in our scope, but I would be excited to explore it in future.
Because that is a very valued commodity in the economy of this province. And at one time, it was a very valued commodity within this town, the cheese factory, feed mills, egg grading station, all these small spin-off, and we had the produce right here. It's not that we can't do it.
Yeah.
It's just, how can we do it?
I absolutely agree. I think that's what we need to be thinking about, because when your food is coming from across the world, it takes one ship getting stuck in a canal for it to all be disrupted for who knows how long, right? And we've seen that
You
happen.
don't get very fat on the waves.
Yes, exactly. So we are focusing very small scale at this stage, but as you've said, it's possible. It's been done before. It's how it was done for so long until it all changed very abruptly, really within the past 200 years. So,
The last
well, even sooner or
30
more
years.
recently here, absolutely.
Just to add on that. So the part of the data collection process is to really get a sense of what those gaps are. So hopefully, and we can take that suggestion and add it to our collection, but it's to identify those gaps. And then as a region, we can use that information and potentially then act on that, right? If that's something that's identified, then what can we do to address that as part of the food system, because that will tie to food resilience.
If you have stability in your food chain in your own area, you've got nothing to worry about going hungry.
I absolutely agree. And
Thanks for the question, Counselor George. Please make sure you turn your.
thank you. Following this data collection phase, which we are again learning about these gaps, learning about these opportunities, our next goal is to develop some sort of training that will bring all these contributors, bring hopefully everyone here together to talk about what learning needs to be done and to learn from each other. There's a wealth of knowledge in this province and a wealth of knowledge in this specific area itself. And part of, or a huge gap that we have seen, is that a lot of people or a lot of organizations aren't talking to each other. And so this is where we want to bring, again, folks together to start those conversations. And hopefully, in our third step there, pull together all these learnings and teachings into a community-based workshop, which we aren't sure what that would look like yet, because as I mentioned, food sovereignty is very broad, the food system is very complex, and there's really so many different leverage points that we could act on. But we do really want to engage members of the public themselves and get them back involved. I mean, with the pandemic, we saw a lot more people starting front yard, backyard gardens again. And so even if it's something as simple as that, or if it's a larger introduction of a processing plant in the community that then supplies to this region, that too, both of those would help build food sovereignty. So that's kind of where the project is planned to go. Oh, that's back. How do I go forward?
Sorry, really quickly, the last slide there, it showed Quebec at like very low compared to everybody
Yes.
else. What is it that they're doing different?
I did not look into the specifics, but I would hazard a guess that they have stronger social safety nets than our province, especially.
Good question.
Counselor George, please use your mic.
Thank you. Could it be that they have a different climate change doing to the south and the lakefront and the availability to ship goods in, or we haven't got that rail or that sea port feature in our province? Everything has to be brought in by rail or truck.
Potentially, but one of the people who are food insecure in Canada, this is across Canada, generally the characteristics of these people is they're renting, they're not making enough money. They're all not all, but many of them are working. They're just not making enough money where they're working. Food is costing too much. They have children. They live with other family members beyond just their nuclear family. So I don't know so much those statistics on food insecurity, if they're necessarily representative of the food systems in the provinces. On the other hand, what you're saying about difficulty to transport food is very, very relevant in the territories. In Nunavut, around 70% of households are food insecure. So absolutely, the ability to transport food easily is a huge factor. And in northern communities and in rural and again, Indigenous communities, depending how difficult they are to get to, that's going to drive up food costs, which will then increase food insecurity. So it definitely could be a part of it. I just don't know, based on my own research, it hasn't come up. I haven't looked much at Quebec's system.
Thank you.
All righty, where's my mouse? There we go. So this is our handy dandy graphic of what I just described. Again, right now we are in this learning stage, and as we've discussed, there are still many, many unknowns, and there probably always will be with such a complex problem. But we are hoping to cultivate this knowledge and begin to grow it and plant this idea that, hey, we have had food sovereignty before, not that long ago, and we can have it again. And this hopefully will lead us to a community harvest of being more resilient in our food system. That's our kitschy little way of demonstrating our goals. I also mentioned, again, this factor that Cross-cultural collaboration is really important to this. It is a tenant or a requirement of our grant, for one, but it's also that, again, we share a lot of characteristics with Indigenous communities. So it's really a partnership that just makes sense. Again, there's higher food costs, which can be caused by the fact that food is traveling longer to reach these communities. Sometimes there is no grocery store. They might only have convenience stores, or there might only be one grocery store. I grew up rurally, and I know my parents had to make a point of driving to the nearest big town to get groceries cheaper because we just couldn't afford to get food in our nearby rural town. Again, transportation infrastructure can be really vulnerable to weather impacts in these communities because they themselves may not have the resources to repair a washed out road as quickly, but also the province or urban centers may not see the value in repairing that road or helping them repair that road because maybe it's not a transportation route for an urban center. So there's less value based on how many people live in that community. We have seen this in Lytton, BC and Hope, BC, both within the past 2 years have had major food transportation disruptions due to severe weather events. Additionally, Indigenous and rural communities tend to have limited support services within the community. There tends to be greater partnership in these communities because Lamont County can provide services that Bruderheim can take advantage of and vice versa. And this partnership, this collaboration that's already inherent in these communities is part of why these communities are so resilient, and the people who live in rural and Indigenous communities are so resilient. And again, we believe that this is just, it's makes sense to support people who want to be self-reliant in this way. And partnership is a good way, ironically, to be more self-reliant, because when we can rely on each other, we're ultimately stronger. So how will this benefit Bruderheim residents? Ideally, this project will create opportunities to address food insecurity in future that we hadn't considered before. We're going to be building relationships with neighbors, critical networks, other support services. I spoke with the Leftovers Foundation out of Edmonton recently, and they were very interested in how maybe we could partner to expand their services out to a rural region, such as Bruderheim. And what they do is they pick up leftovers from different businesses and then provide those leftovers to organizations that then provide those leftovers to food insecure families. So again, these partnerships are already happening and we're really excited to see them benefit the residents. Additionally, we're able to learn from traditional knowledge and also the innovation that's already happening. Regarding food sovereignty, it does tend to have more weight or credence in Indigenous communities because of that ownership, because of that self control in a way. Self-control is not the right word, but they want to have control over their food systems. And so these Indigenous communities are doing things like implementing their own farms, implementing their own processing facilities and food storage places, where if there is a significant event, they don't have to rely on external networks. One example is in Kanaka Bar, which is near Lytton, BC. They are in the process of building a massive food storage facility that can withstand power outages, fires, and floods because they have seen what happens when you don't have those sources. So again, we have a lot to learn from our Indigenous partners in this regard. Additionally, this is an avenue that we can create opportunities for reconciliation in action and recognize the various expertise throughout the province, as well as this will help us identify potential grant opportunities in future. This food system, food sovereignty, food resilience topic is really becoming a lot more popular, and we have met with a lot of people where it's something brand new to them. So it really won't take that long until grant funding becomes available for this specific goal. So we are in the dawn of this era, and I'm very excited to see where it goes. And I will pass it back to Jill if there are no questions.
Thanks.
Councillor George.
Yeah, getting to be broken record. Anyway, one of the things that we haven't touched base on is cultural change. Cultural change. 50 years ago, Mama was home, cooked the meals, did the canning, all this kind of stuff. Nowadays, Mama works, gets all of her groceries, all of her stuff from grocery store. Is there anything being done to bring that culture back? Not saying that Mama has to stay home, but say like for preservation of your own food stocks, canning, have your own garden and stuff like that. That's a very good way to have food stability in your own home.
Mhm. Yeah, we've had multiple conversations about just that, about food preservation and understanding that whole process of growing your food, harvesting it, preserving it. There's absolutely room for community support for teaching those things.
But have we did any actual teaching?
Through this, no, not
We
yet.
did a lot of talk without teaching.
Yeah, no, through this, because we're early in the stage, that may end up being the topic of the workshop that we hold, depending on the summary of the findings that we make. So, but it's definitely been multiple conversations about it, for sure. So this is just a quick highlight of the upcoming projects that we'll be looking at. So as I mentioned, we'll be hiring 2 staff through the ART program. And what we hope to do with those staff is to refresh our regional resilience plan. We've accomplished a lot of what we originally set out to do. Continue to implement our communications plan and our existing programs that we've touched on. And then as well to continue on with that food sovereignty project and look at how that can become a model as well. And then overall that the model for other communities to share what we've learned in this entire process, the potential to bring on additional communities as well into our partnership. I have multiple communities in touch with me that really want the chance to learn from what we're doing and see a lot of value. So we'll explore what that might look like. A case study on housing and climate adaptation, and then a grant scan to look for how we might move into other projects into the future. So thank you so much for having us this evening. Are there any final questions?
Does anyone from council have any questions, thoughts, comments? Jill and Danielle, thank you so much for the presentation. One thought that I did have is, so there's lots of good information there. The province must be well aware of these issues, no? And is there any, if not, or maybe the possibility exists to help advocate to upper levels of government to make them aware these issues, and if they're not aware, and how we might be able to help move them forward and encourage them to maybe have some kind of grant funding or some format of way of moving things forward to address those inadequacies in the system, especially you're talking about rural areas, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And that again was another initial concept at the beginning of thinking, how can we advocate to get different funding or different funding structures. So it could be something maybe we bring to FCM and suggest a rural funding stream. There's different avenues for that, but we do have provincial contacts that are and have been for years since we started interested in what we're doing. So
yeah, it's great, and I applaud you folks for the work that you're doing, but it's just this small little, and to get the broader sense out there because the issues like Councillor George brought up about packing plants, that's beyond the scope of what these couple communities can try to make a difference on, but the broader community, maybe that would be something that could be addressed in the future, right?
Yeah,
that's all I was saying. So Councillor George, do you have a final thought?
Yeah, I have one final thought. Do you have any plans for pilot projects?
We have some hopes for pilot projects. And of course, it would be dependent on funding. And so that will be part of our grant scan to look for funding and
Because you
how we
have
can
lots of,
expand that.
you have lots of ideas, but we have to prove these ideas
Mhm.
useful. And once we prove these ideas useful, then we can go ahead.
Mhm, Yep.
People will grab onto something that's proven a lot quicker than
mhm,
just words on paper.
Yeah. That's part of why we're spending so much time on this engagement, because it's a new topic, but it's not brand new. There are communities that are acting on this. One example that did sound very positive based on our interaction is we spoke to St. Paul Champions for Change, so representatives in St. Paul. And one of the things they had designed were these incredible edible barrels. So rather than have a community garden, they just had planter boxes that were all planted with edible food. And it was free to anybody who wanted to take some, and restaurants were using it. And the way they engaged folks, they had a homeless population who they engaged, but who were so excited about this project that the homeless population then took it upon themselves to protect these barrels from vandalism. So there are so many ideas out there that are positive and showing great promising results. The question is, after this, once we get into our training program, think tank part, what will work for Bruderheim? And ideally in that stage, we'll also be able to engage some residents, invite them to know, okay, what is something you might want to be involved in? What would actually bring value to your life? So there are lots of ideas, but it's very early to settle on anything specific.
Thank you.
Thanks again for the presentation. We're very great work.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate your time, and have a safe drive home. So we're looking for a motion from council to receive this presentation as information. Councillor George. Councillor George, please use your mic.
I'm gonna throw that thing away yet. I make a motion that we accept the Resilient Rural's presentation as information.
Thank you, Councillor George. Maybe just pull that thing a little closer to you. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion? Okay, call for a vote. All those in favor? And the motion's carried. Great. Thank you. Much appreciated. We have a resolution in support of Rail Safety Week that was an addition, and this one's not mayor specific. So in the hopes of encouraging those from council that may have the initiative to want to read this, would someone from council be willing to read the resolution in support of Rail Safety Week? Councillor Dana.
In support of Rail Safety Week, whereas Rail Safety Week is to be held across Canada from September 18th to the 24th, 2023. Whereas 232 railway crossing and trespassing incidents occurred in Canada in 2022, resulting in 66 avoidable fatalities and 43 avoidable serious injuries. Whereas educating and informing the public about rail safety, reminding the public that railway rights right away are private property, enhancing public awareness of the dangers associated with highway rail grade crossings, ensuring pedestrians and motorists are looking and listening while near railways, and obeying established traffic laws will reduce the number of avoidable fatalities and injuries caused by incidents involving trains and citizens. And whereas Operation Lifesaver is a public/private partnership whose aim is to work with the public, rail industry, governments, police services, media, and others to raise rail safety awareness. Whereas CN has requested City Council adopt this resolution in support of its ongoing efforts to raise awareness, save lives, and prevent injuries in communities, including our municipality.
You just got to complete the portion at the bottom there.
It is hereby resolved to support National Rail Safety Week to be held from September 18th to 24th, 2023.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Dana. Any comments, questions, or concerns stemming from that? We just need a motion to accept this as information. Deputy Mayor Wayne.
Make a motion to receive the the Rail Safety Week resolution as information.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Wayne. Any comments? CAO Phyllis.
Sir, the resolution is that you support National Rail Safety Week, not for information, sir.
Okay, so thank you for that correction. Would who made the Deputy Mayor Wayne, could you just reread the motion for that? Yeah. Correct.
I make a motion to support National Safety Rail Week to be held from September 18th to 24th, 2023.
Great. Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor Wayne. Appreciate your patience. And any comments, concerns, questions? The only thing I'd like to add is, can we alert CN and CP that we passed this resolution? Because they're the ones that were logging it. Thank you. Call for a vote then. All those in favor of the motion, and the motion's carried. Great. And now we are moving into the closed session portion of the agenda. So we are going to need a motion to go into closed session. Councillor Dana had her hand up first.
My mic's still on too. I motion that we go into closed session.
Thank you. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? Haven't heard none. Call for a vote. All those in favor of going into closed session, and we're in closed session. Stemming from our closed session, this motion to bring forward, would someone from council be willing to bring forward that motion? Councillor George, you have the motion then?
Yes, motion being, motion number one. In regards to our in-camera meeting. That Councillor Falardo at the next council meeting, regular council meeting at which he is in attendance, provide a full apology to all the members for breaching the council code of conduct bylaw 11-2018. That's the first motion.
Thank you for that motion. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? Haven't heard none, call for a vote. All those in favor? And opposed? And the motion is carried. And we move on to the next motion.
The next motion being stemming from the minutes of our last meeting, of our in-camera meeting, that as a result of the violation of the council code of conduct, Councillor Falardo's duties be limited to attending councils for a period of 6 months ending February 16th, 2024.
Thank you for that motion, Councillor George. CIO Phyllis, is that sufficient? Okay. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? Okay, I haven't heard none. Call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion? And opposed? And the motion's carried. Now we can move on to confirmation of minutes. Town of Bruderheim sorry. Did I
I
miss something?
motion that we have a comfort break.
Thank you for that motion. I apologize. I forgot about that. All those in favor? And the motion's carried. Any opposed?
Not a
Oh,
bit.
I didn't see you. Okay, thank you. We're good to go. So Councillor Dana made the motion to reconvene in the public session. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion? Haven't heard none, call for a vote. All those in favor? And the motion's carried and we're back in the public session. So now we can move forward with confirmation of minutes, Town of Bruderheim regular meeting minutes from July 5th. Would someone be willing to make that motion? Councillor Dana?
I motion that we approve the Town of Bruderheim regular meeting minutes from July 5th, 2023.
Thank you for that motion. Any comments, questions, or concerns with the motion for the minutes from July 5th? Haven't heard none, call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion? And the motion's carried. And now we move forward with the motion for the special meeting from July 17th. I don't have it here. Oh, you got it. Okay.
So it was pointed out to me earlier, sir, that we missed, I missed adding when Councillor Falardo joined the meeting, and I will have to make that. So if we could make the motion as amended, please.
Thank you for that, CAO Phyllis. So we're looking for a motion from council for the amended minutes for the special meeting from July 17th. Deputy Mayor Wayne.
The town council adopt the July 17, 2023 special council meeting minutes as amended.
Thank you for that motion, Deputy Mayor Wayne. Looking for any comments, questions, or concerns from council for that motion. Haven't heard none, call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion? And the motion's carried and we can move on now to council priorities. Is there any council priorities at this time? Councillor Len.
Yes, I would like to make a notice of motion that direct administration to put a bylaw in place, an anti-discriminatory bylaw, anti-hate bylaw, sex bylaw, or and including all things, and that the bylaw should read that this town will not interact with anybody group who has any of those basically the bylaws are basically an anti-hate bylaw, and include all race, all different sexual discrimination and everything, and put that bylaw in place so we can so the council in the town of Bruderheim, because we have to be very clear that the town of Bruderheim cannot show any of that either when they're hiring practices or anything else, that we have a bylaw in place that covers all that. So that means if there's a group who has anti-hate or anything goes against that bylaw, the town of Bruderheim cannot associate with that group. Thank you.
Okay, so that's a notice of motion.
Notice of motion.
Okay, does administration need any direction for that notice of motion? Okay, thank you for that notice of motion, Councillor Len. Is there any other council priorities at this time? Deputy Mayor Wayne.
Just a quick question. In the ditch going along the road here, what are those 52nd? Shaw Cable still has their line. Is that an active line or is it?
It's a deadline, but I asked them not to remove it. They said they would remove it, and getting through to Shaw and getting results is getting through them is easy. Getting results is not easy. So that along with
Please turn the mic on.
my apologies. So it's very difficult to get this to happen. So it is a deadline. However, it does need to be removed, but they were the ones that to remove it. We can't remove it. So we're working around it. I know aesthetically in some places it doesn't look the greatest, but students have weed whipped around it and tried to groom it the best we can. So it's Shaw, and what can I say? It's very difficult to get through them.
Okay, well, thank you.
And just to add, I know this has come up a few months ago, so this is just how long it's taken to get something happening here. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that inquiry, Deputy Mayor Wayne. Any other council priorities? Councillor George and Councillor Dana.
Councillor George, Councillor Dana, sorry.
Anyway, I'm just gonna take a step back into our bylaw that we passed here on the use of dirt bikes and quads. We have put in place a bylaw that if the users are respective of the bylaw is very useful. But there's those who definitely disrespect it. And here, well, 10 days ago, I witnessed two incidents. One was in front of my house. Was where a dirt bike rider was very disrespectful to the neighborhood. But the one that really caught my attention was right at the East Brookside entrance. There was a dirt bike and a yellow quad coming across the highway from the north side to the south side. And if that car wouldn't have been tooting its horn very loud, that quad or dirt bike would have not been here today. Where I'm coming from is that if we're going to have this bylaw in place, then we should have designated roads.
Councillor George, thank you for that inquiry. I believe that we're going to be talking about that bylaw later in our agenda. So,
I'm just bringing it to attention. Thanks for the
Okay.
reminder.
okay, thank you, Councillor George.
Yeah.
And then Councillor Dana.
Just for Public Works, just a quick question, just on the gopher hole situation at the grounds, because we got that event coming up in a month here, actually, yeah, pretty close to a month. What's the game plan on there?
So, Mr. Mayor, through the Councillor Jacobs, the plan is to do what we did last year. We'll cover up the holes on Friday. Get everything the best we can. I don't know what the Gophers will do between Friday and Saturday. As an update, Strathcona County indicated that they have removed 250 so far Gophers. We have done probably that amount ourselves. I have never seen this before, and this happens to be the year that the Gophers have just taken control. So we're out there almost daily bombing, and we only have limited resources through Strathcona County due to our contract, but I was surprised that they had removed that many already. So again, the short answer is yes, we will make sure that we get those grounds leveled as we did last year, fill in the holes. But I can't guarantee that they won't dig something up overnight, but if something does come about, we do have a staff member coming that day. We'll have them run around and make sure we get those ones that are covered up if it's in the ball field or what have you. So, and I also got your message on that, on the grass cutting. That'll not a problem. We'll be very prepared for that. So, thank you.
The only reason I bring this up is just from feedback from last year. That's all. So I just am following up with that.
Thank you for that inquiry, Councillor Dana, and to just follow up on her inquiry about gopher holes in the that area. I know that in the disc golf area, there's number of open gopher holes there. Is there any possibility of filling those? Because I've heard today that there's folks playing disc golf and there's going to be a tournament during the event as well, right?
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, you can imagine all the holes that we have at Gopher Flats over there. We do the best we can with the resources we have. So as the holes present themselves and we can get them covered, we will. So it's just a work in progress. That's all I can tell you is I know Councillor Aletko had sent an email last week. We went out, we covered up some of those holes and put some markers on disc golf, and they're back again. So as much as resources can give us, we'll get out there and get those holes covered.
Thank you. And any other inquiries from the rest of council? I did have one inquiry that's coming from, Councillor George, you had your hand up? Councillor George.
Is there any feedback on the drainage on the Highway 45 ditch? There was supposed to be some meetings.
Those negotiations and meetings are still ongoing, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question, Councillor George. Is there any other in council priorities? This is coming from the Water Commission meeting in the meeting room in the Affinity Center. There is a cabling and a bracket for a projector, but there's no projector. Is that something that can be thought about for in the future?
Can definitely add it for 2024 budget.
Thank you. So moving along from priorities, we can move now to bylaw 7.1, decrease in number of counselors, staff report.
So at the June 21st, 2023 regular council meeting, a motion was made to have administration develop a bylaw to reduce the number of council members to 5. This includes the chief elected officer to be elected by separate ballot and 4 councillors. We have started notifying our residents both on social media and in utility buildings, and we continue to notify and plan for a non-statutory public hearing. As at this time, we have not received any comments back, and the MGA identifies that a bylaw must be advertised but remains silent on public hearing. So tonight we will be asking for you to have reviewed the bylaw and provide first reading.
Thank you. So just to clarify, you have not received any surveys?
We have received no data back from any of our residents at this time.
Well, I know of a few people who have said that they filled out surveys, so I'm just curious. So where did the surveys go?
They're supposed to be coming directly to me. I will check with Strathcona to see if there's a glitch somewhere, but I can look back through spam or junk emails to see if there's something there.
Okay, thank you. So, yep. Oh, Councillor Dana, sorry.
Just for stuff like, for this example, because you have it on the utility bills and all that jazz, is there any way that they could push stuff like that a little bit more on social media?
I believe it is bumped once a week onto social media. Yeah.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Dana. So social media, meaning Instagram and Facebook and all. Okay, thank you. So now we're looking for a motion to approve the first reading of this bylaw. Would someone from council be willing to make that motion? That's correct, yeah. Councillor Dana is going to read the motion.
Yeah, you betcha.
Thank you.
I'm making a motion that we give first reading for bylaw 07-2023 number of counselors.
That's sufficient? Okay, great. Thank you for that motion, Councillor Dana. So looking for any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion. Okay, hearing nothing, then we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And opposed? And the motion's carried. Thank you very much. So now we move on to 7.2 procedural bylaw staff report. CAO Phyllis, you have the floor.
Council passed third and final reading of bylaw 11-2019 on November 6th, 2019. We have reviewed the bylaw with a PowerPoint presentation, and we provided council with a copy of the bylaw for review and comment. On July 17th, we compiled a procedures bylaw review questions that we had received from council. In response to those questions, the document provided additional information on the proposed bylaw changes and clarified information in the bylaw that was not clearly understood by all of council. The new proposed bylaw 062023 captures all the changes recommended by administration, and we have done some grammatical updates today. So we are asking that council give first reading to bylaw 062023 as amended.
Thank you for that, CAO Phyllis. So we're looking for a motion for procedural bylaw. Councillor George.
I make a motion that council give the first reading to bylaw 06-023 procedures, meeting procedures bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor George. You mean 062023, right?
Yeah. whatever.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion? Okay, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And the motion's carried. And thank you for that extensive work. That's a very large bylaw and lots to remember. And I'll probably ask for a paper copy of that to keep beside the computer when we're having meetings. So I remember what we're supposed to be doing. And that will include the grammatical. Yeah, okay, great. And so now we move on to policies. 8.1, policy 72.
So we are doing general review of policies. So council approved the code of conduct during workshops and other briefing sessions by administration on January 6, 2016. And that was resolution 072016. We are reviewing all policies and making amendments. Amendments to this policy include under guidelines, change section 2, change the wording meeting to documentation and add or consider transient in nature. Under guidelines for administration, section 1B, remove the word solicited and change it to permitted, and add as per the Municipal Government Act. Number 3, changing the wording in camera in section 4B and 4C to closed section to align with council meeting procedures bylaw and the MGA. Made changes in the chief administrative officer name and designation and assigning a new date to review the policy. So we'll be asking that council approve this policy as amended August 16th, 2023.
Thank you for that preamble, CAO Phyllis. So we're looking for a motion from council to move forward with this policy. Deputy Mayor Wayne.
Move to approve the conduct of council during workshops and other briefing sessions by administration policy number 72 as amended on August 16, 2023.
Thank you for that motion, Deputy Mayor Wayne. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion? Okay, haven't heard none. We'll call for a vote then. All those in favor of the motion, and the motion's carried. Now we move on to request for decisions. 9.1 Communities in Bloom. There's a staff report.
Sherry, can you take that?
The town of Bruderheim has been involved with the Communities in Bloom program since 2002. This program provided an outline for communities to assess overall tidiness and what opportunities there were to build on what community had and where they wanted to go, hence the slogan, People, Plants, and Pride. In 2012, the town received 5 blooms in the provincial awards and achieved highest points to move on to the national Communities in Bloom competitions. In 2019, the town of Bruderheim won 5 blooms and highest points in the national competition across Canada. In 2020, 21, and 22, the town of Bruderheim was a member of Communities in Bloom without competing in any category, and that was due to COVID. In 23, we enrolled in the Circle of Excellence category. After 3 years, the town of Bruderheim was required to participate in a category to enable us to continue in the program. Currently, the town Communities in Bloom is a town-funded program, and volunteers, including council members, volunteer to plant and maintain landscaped areas and to plant containers for streetscaping. Plants and supplies are ordered by the town staff, and volunteers ensure the landscaped areas are cared for in partnership with public works staff. This year, there were 13 volunteers that planted and maintained the green spaces in Bruderheim, each participating when their schedules allowed. Council planted the flowers at Teal's greenhouse this spring, and they were placed along McQueen Street. During COVID, the Communities in Bloom organization was bought out by the Canadian Landscaping Association, and the program was revamped, and that was information was shared by the judges that came into our community just recently. There's been a lot of changes with the program. They have a new vision, which was to inspire all communities to enhance the quality of life in our environment through plants and people, to create a community pride. They have a new mission, volunteer and partnership-driven organizations that uses a multi-tiered process, competitive evaluation process to foster community strength, involvement, and continuous improvement. This is accomplished by nurturing environmental sustainability, enhancement of green spaces, heritage conservation, cultural and natural environments encompassing municipal, residential, commercial, and institutional spaces. The new slogan is Growing Great Places Together. I won't go into a lot of the other information with respect to the program. If the town of Bruderheim is to continue in this program, council would guide administration on policies and bylaws that may be incorporated to address the components they feel would benefit our community. The cost to register for this program is $880, plus the cost for the visiting judge's accommodation of approximately $500 when they visit the community. In September, once the National Communities in Bloom Awards ceremony is completed, the town of Bruderheim will receive a document that will share information on the areas of strength, areas of growth that the judges noticed based on their discussions with council staff while touring the community. They also did a lot of investigation on our town website. And so administration is bringing this forward because we weren't sure, looking to the future, the program has changed a lot in terms of their scope, and Bruderheim has to make a decision whether we want to continue in the program or whether we would like to step away and take a break. And so this is what we're presenting to council tonight.
Thank you for that information, Sherry. And I just want to commend you and your volunteers for doing great work in the town of Bruderheim. Much appreciated. So you talked about a lot of changes. We don't really know what they are. Is there anything negative or sideways or?
Through Mayor Hauk, there's nothing negative in the program. It's just changed in terms of there's a lot of focus on the environment now, which requires the towns, for those of you that might not know, when they come into the community, they're looking at what the town of Bruderheim Council has put into effect to look after our community. So they look at things like, do you have a urban forestry plan, for example? Do you have bylaws? One that they brought up when we were having discussions is when people take down a tree, do you have a bylaw that says if you take down a tree, you need to plant equal number of trees to sustain the amount of carbon that those trees take out of the air? So do you have a policy in place for that? So I think that's the changes that are happening. And so there's a lot more council involvement, I guess I would say. And I think council is very involved in Communities in Bloom. You volunteer and you're a part of it, but there's a lot more policies and bylaws now that they will be looking for when they come to communities. And so it's a question of whether the council feels that there's value in the program and working on those kinds of things.
Thank you for that explanation, Sherry. Much appreciated. So we're looking for a motion from council to make a decision. Would someone be willing to make that motion? Councillor George.
Let me make that motion. I'm going to use the recommendation that the town of Bruderheim renew the membership in the Communities in Bloom and continue with the program. That being said, this is one of the most valued programs within the community that brings value to the town in appearance. It brings value to the town as it shows care. It sells the town.
Thank you for that motion, Councillor George. Any other comments, questions, or concerns? Deputy Mayor Wayne.
In years previously, was there a cost to it?
Deputy Mayor, I'll echo through Mayor Hauk. There's always been a cost for the program. And it's always been about that cost. It's just that it's a landscaping association that's taken over now. So they really are focused on environment and landscape.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions, or concerns on the motion from council? Just one thought. I'm just wondering, is there any potential in the future to try to engage with partners to help offset any costs or support for the program? I'm thinking of, not singling any certain organization out, but landscaping or greenhouses or those kind of organizations, because it's a benefit for everybody, right?
Through Mayor Hauk to council. Absolutely, with the changes and after speaking with the judges that were here and the new focus with the landscaping, I think the real estate market and landscaping associations, greenhouses absolutely would be people we'd be approaching. And we are really fortunate that we do have a local greenhouse that totally supports this program. They do donate a lot of plants and shrubs and trees to make it sustainable and do help us with a lot of planting and designing.
Thank you for that. And we need to trumpet those that are helping us with that program. Thank you. So if there's no further questions on the motion, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And the motion's carried. Thank you. Now we move on to Director Emergency Management Appointment, Staff Report 9.2.
So historically, your Director of Emergency Management has been filled by the Chief Administration Officer when required training was in place. As we look forward into our future, it is, I guess, the time to appoint me as the Director of Emergency Management. So your options are to change it to me or to continue to have Sherry. And our recommendation is that you appoint me as the Director of Emergency Management, and Dennis will continue as the Deputy Director.
Thank you for that, CAO Phyllis. So we're looking for a motion from council for the Director Emergency Management Appointment position. Deputy Mayor Wayne.
The town council appoint Phyllis Forsyth as the Director of Emergency Management.
Thank you for that motion, Deputy Mayor Wayne. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council? Just one question I might have is in terms of time for this role to take on as CAO and Director of Emergency Management during an event or anything like that. Is there going to be any issues, do you think, or? I don't imagine so. I think you have experience in this role, right?
Yeah, I've been doing this a while. During the event, we are fortunate enough to belong to some really good organizations that will support us with members that can step in for alternative operational periods.
Okay, thank you very much, CAO Phyllis. So if there's no other questions or comments or concerns, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And the motion's carried. Now we move on to e-signatures, staff report 9.3.
So upon my arrival, one of the files I inherited was for e-signatures for accounts payable. The process was originally set up in software during COVID and then was shelved for the new CAO. Should council wish to proceed, a policy will need to be developed that outlines the limits for e-signatures and when actual signatures will be needed. In previous municipalities, if there was something over my spending limit, which was 75,000, then that required a member of council to come in and do the actual counter signing. The machine couldn't do them at that. So we'd be looking at making those policy developed guidelines.
Okay, thank you for that, CAO Phyllis. So is it clear what we're asking for a motion from council? Is someone willing to make that motion? Councilor Ashley.
A motion that the CAO develop policy procedure, right? Yeah, and implementation plan for e-signatures on account payable checks.
Thank you very much, Councilor Ashley. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? Councilor Wayne, or sorry, Deputy Mayor Wayne, and then Councilor George.
Do you need one just to sign stuff regularly or no? Like, how does that, is that different from?
So we don't have a policy right now that I've found. So it's a member of council and me that have to sign the check. So it's a duplicate signature. In the new, if you went to an e-signature, I would be given the accounts payable list to sign off on, but all the signatures would already be done. That list would be then given to the mayor for his signature and his review when he comes in, or deputy mayor or acting mayor, as the case may be.
But to sign other stuff, you don't need a policy for that to do with digital, right? Is that, or does that matter? I don't know. I'm just.
Not normally, no,
Okay.
but because we're talking funding and it is council's job to be fiscally responsible, you need to develop this policy.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the question, Deputy Mayor Wayne. Councilor George. Thank you for that.
And what would be the limitation on this?
Council has not set that yet. I would probably be looking for the size of Bruderheim, anything over $10,000 probably.
Can I be excused for a minute?
Councilor George, let it be noted that he has to leave the meeting for a minute. And please turn your mic off. Thank you. Any other comments, questions, or concerns on that motion? Okay, I haven't heard none. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion? And the motion's carried. Now we move on to number 10, consent agenda, CAO report. Oh, sorry, I missed one. Yep, you're right. Municipal intern staff report 9.4. Thank you.
So as administration and council consider long-term succession planning, my thoughts turn to the municipal intern program. The program is Canada's largest and longest running program of its kind. Hosting a recent post-secondary grad in our organization will contribute to the success of our municipality by bringing new ideas and perspectives, fresh energy, and creative approaches to tackle some of the challenges facing our municipality. To date, over 350 interns and 100 Alberta municipalities have participated in the program. The program provides support to municipalities and planning service agencies to develop and train recent post-secondary grads so they may pursue careers in municipal administration, finance, and land use planning. Organizations around the province with offices of 10 staff to those with hundreds of employees in urban and rural locations and communities have benefited from hosting an intern. I believe that hosting an intern in a small municipality gives them greater experience in all assets and all facets of municipal governance. And you might find the next Dennis, or you might find the next me or the next Sharon through this type of program, and we can mentor them and teach them and encourage our youth of today to join municipal government.
Sounds like a great idea. Thank you for that, CAO Phyllis. Looking for a motion from council for the municipal intern staff in municipal intern position. And I think Sherry noted that Councillor George was back. Yeah, thank you. So looking for that motion from council. Someone be willing to make that motion? Deputy Mayor Wayne.
That the chief administrative officer apply for a municipal intern in the administrative stream through the Alberta Community Partnership Grant.
Thank you for that motion, Deputy Mayor Wayne. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Councillor Len.
To the administration, is there a cost to this program and how much is the cost?
There is no cost.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Len. Any other? Oh, Councillor George has a question.
What would be the length of term for this officer?
Municipal intern usually lasts, the grant period is 12 to 18 months. We do know that we do have 3 staff members considering retirement within the next 2 years. So there will be openings in the town of Bruderheim.
Thank you for the question, Councillor George. Please turn your mic off. Is there any other comments, questions, or concerns on this motion? Municipal interns, is there different areas that they focus on, and how do you choose which intern you would look for?
So you apply in 2 streams. So there's the administrative stream or the planning and development stream. We do not qualify to apply under the planning and development stream, as we do not have a certified planner in our employ. An administration stream, they can work in finance, they can work in development, learn development officer, they can work under me, they can learn some stuff from Dennis as well.
And duties as assigned?
And other duties as assigned.
Thank you for that, CAO Phyllis. So if there's no other questions, comments, or concerns, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion? And the motion's carried. Now we can go on to number 10, consent agenda 10.1 CAO report. Okay, 11.1. CAO Phyllis.
Your consent agenda includes the CAO report, the project report, quarterly financial report, the service level review from corporate services. Be more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, before we launch into motion, then, does anyone have any questions on the consent agenda? I have some questions on the project report. On the project report, I noticed that there are dates that are passed on projects that are not completed yet. I'm just wondering when we would see new dates as well. I noticed there was projects that say started in status, but at 0%. So what's going on with those ones?
So the electronic sign, Sherry and I just met about that today, and we have just about a plan put together, and we will be finished by December 31st. And the signage Sherry is working on, they have been started. We just haven't updated the percentage with Dennis on some of the signs for the posts. And some of our other projects, I'll let Dennis speak to, and he will give you an update on the force main later. But I will let Dennis speak to his facility plans.
Thank you, CAO Phyllis.
Mr. Mayor, Council, so anything in specific, I'll just go through this very quickly. So starting at the community hall stove, myself, Sherry and Phyllis are going to be heading into Edmonton over the next few weeks and trying to secure a hall stove. The community hall exterior is currently at about 30% now. That could be updated, and I'll have it updated tomorrow. The inside interior is done upstairs from all the new window replacements. We're just waiting for the tin to come, and it is our hopes, along with the contractors, that this will be done prior to that September 16th weekend of festivities. So we're hoping. The floor repairs are 100% complete at the arena. The arena lobby furnace, that just got, again, I have to change that. That just happened today. All the furnaces arrived, including your makeup area unit. We didn't have to wait to 16 weeks. So our contractor secured it. So they'll start installation next Wednesday, I believe they're starting. So I'm assured that the ventilation and the two front furnaces will be replaced. It was the makeup area unit that was the wild card. So it's no longer a wild card, it's in. So that one should be at about that 30%, along with the arena lobby furnace. Arena skate is 100% complete as indicated. The storage room, I'm waiting for a quote from two different contractors for the ROC. That's the addition that we're talking about here. The skate shack has been ordered. So it's the same size as the existing skate shack. The only difference is being there'll be no windows. There'll still be an opening because we do have a light shining in there at night. Windows we found has been very challenging trying to maintain those from not being busted. And also the shack will be sided. It won't just be something that we have to paint year after year. So we'll have siding on it. And going down the line on the bulk water fill station, I'm working with two different vendors on that right now. I'm just trying to work on price from what I budgeted. And so again, that's more of a, once it's bought, it's in, it's a very quick switch over. So machinery and equipment, the mower's been purchased, as you've seen, 100%. Electronic sign, Phyllis alluded to that earlier, that we're working on that, and they talked about it today. The playground is complete. It is open to the public. We're hoping that all the grass is taken by the September festivities. Looking at it today, I think that's very, very achievable. Roads, trail system resurfacing is 100%, and mid office parking lot was 100%. I'm going to come back to the forest main upgrade. Lagoon dredging was 100% complete, and the fire pump is ongoing. That's at 0%. There's some variables that play a role there with some
of what we have going on with the reservoir. The public works pickup is complete. Yeah, okay. And is there anything that council wants to talk about in specific to any of those?
And the only thing left that I wanted to ask is on the reservoir, it's showing completion date of 2025. That fits with the mandate from the province when that has to be completed by?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor.
Perfect, thank you.
If
Any other comments, questions, or concerns for Councillor Jordan?
When do you expect shovel in the ground for that project?
so currently, Mr. Mayor, through to Councillor Campbell, the project is currently out for tender. The tender closes September 1st, and it'll probably take us a week to 10 days to gather all the numbers, take a look at what we have, and bring it back and see if we are able to do it with the funds that we have. So my hopes is if everything works out in a perfect world, is to have at least the concrete portion in ground. And we've had a meeting on August 11th with all the contractors that were interested in bringing the bidding of this job. And I came in and it was very clear, made very clear that we would like to have concrete in the ground prior to freeze up. Because we made it very clear in the tender documents that we would not be paying for hoarding costs or heating costs. So concrete in the ground before December 31st. Or freeze up, whichever comes first. That's the hope.
Could this project be put off till spring?
You could, yes.
Because dealing with construction, we could end up, whether we want to or not, end up paying for hoarding and heating.
In the tender documents, it's specific. So if they took on the tender, we would not be charged for those costs. It's indicated specifically. There's a thing called specified perils in there. They have to accept that. So just to ease your mind, Councillor Campbell. Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Campbell. Are we okay to move on with one motion to the consent agenda now? And would someone from council be willing to make that motion? Deputy Mayor Wayne.
That town council consent agenda items for August 16, 2023 to be received for information.
Thank you for that motion, Deputy Mayor Wayne. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? Haven't heard none. Call for a vote. All those in favor? And the motion is carried. And now we move on to number 12, correspondence and information items. Is what I've got, right? Because we covered 11.1 to 11.4 with that one motion, right? So correspondence and information items, I don't have anything currently for correspondence and information. In the folder here is just stuff to sign, so.
What I added in.
This resolution summary.
Yeah, so you have a briefing note from AB Muni's convention resolutions, but no other correspondence.
Okay, so do we need a motion to accept that resolution summary as information? Yes. Okay, now looking for a motion from council to accept the resolution summary for council from the AM. Would someone be willing to make that motion? Yep, that's correct. Yep.
I motion that we accept the resolution summary as information. Do I have to read the date? No, that's good. We're golden.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dana. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? Haven't heard none. Call for a vote. All those in favor of that motion, and the motion's carried. Now we move on to 12.1 briefing note, AB Muni's convention resolutions. We just need a motion to accept that as information, or that was that one. Okay, then we move on to 12.2 briefing force main project, and it's a verbal from Dennis, right?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. So I just want to update you where we are in the force main, and bear with me as I go through this. So that we did tender this out, and we received 5 tenders, 5 contractors bid on this. The budgeted amount the pre-engineering budget amount on this was 375 to 400,000, and we did put away for MSI 375,000. The pre-engineering was around that amount. The estimate, or sorry, the low bid came in at 1.277 million for this, and I was very perplexed on how that happened and how the engineering was so off on this. And what we found when we broke it down is majority of the costs are materials. Materials have gone up dramatically, and more so on the pipe itself. Per meter, it's 3 times as much as the engineers had predetermined. So with that being said, I sent the engineers back to come up with another plan, and the other plan was to perhaps line the existing sewer line. But unfortunately, those numbers, the pre-engineered numbers that came back on those are over $1 million as well. So we are working on another plan to visually inspect that line. We've been reactive to when that line breaks, we repair it. We really don't know what's down there. We know it's an old line. However, I think the next steps are, before we even commit to some of these dollars that we're looking at, is to get a good look inside that pipe, see where our problem areas are. We do have some money put away, and perhaps tackle those problem areas. In order to do that, we have to shut the lift station down. That means that all the raw sewage from Brookside would have to be vacuumed out during that day. We can do a camera inspection in 1 day. Those costs can be absorbed from our overall infrastructure assessment grant that we have. So it wouldn't cost anything out of our current operating. So we can do that. And that is going to be my recommendation to the engineers, to focus on and see what those costs are going to look like, and go from there. Because this is out of what we budgeted for dramatically. And with the costs of materials going up and up every year, this is what we're faced with. I did ask about the pre-engineered amounts for the reservoir that indicative to this, but they feel they're close in line to that based on other reservoirs. This one here caught them off surprise big time. So they didn't see this. I definitely didn't see this coming. So this is what we're forced with. We're on hold until we get a better look at what we're actually dealing with. And I open the floor to any questions on that.
All I can say is that I think the inspection is a very good first step to ensure we know exactly what we're dealing with before we tackle anything.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Dennis, is that old pipe, the clay tile pipe?
Yes, it is.
That is a jointed pipe then?
It's jointed, yeah. Bell joints.
That's 54. Roughly.
Don't know. We're very, through council, there's very little information in the sanitary sewer works that went up in Brookside back in the day. I've searched and searched and searched, and what we've come up with is what we have today. So we're just, again, I'll echo what the mayor just said. In order for us to move forward, I want to put a camera in, take a look at what we got. Perhaps just tackle the hard areas to get us through, and we can put some dollars away each year until we have the dollars to actually do the entire line. One thing I will say, and we all know we were faced with that in the spring, is the complexity of where we are putting this line. If we had a clear shot straight back to Lagoon, the costs would go down significantly. However, we have to go south, west, and back north again. So that's where the costs increase on that pipe.
There's nothing clarified on that easement?
Nothing right now. Nope. We have no. I'll let Phyllis answer that one actually.
We have no updates from legal at this time on that. We were told it could take up to a year for things to be ratified.
Where I'm coming from is I don't really want to put good money after bad. You know, you can only repair so long before you have to replace completely. So if the cost of repairing is going to be 50% or better of what our initial cost to replace, are we spending good money after bad?
Yeah, and that's where the inspection, I think, was the probably the best first place to start is do the inspection and then know what we're dealing with for any potential repairs. Yeah, thank you. Any other comments, questions, or concerns with force main? And would someone be willing to make a motion to accept that report as information? Councillor Dana.
I accept the, oops, I jumped one. I accept the, where did it go? Like disappeared. Sorry.
No worries.
George, you want to take this one?
Okay, Councillor George.
I'll make a motion that we accept the forest line presentation as information.
Thank you for that, Councillor George. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? Haven't heard none. Call for a vote. All those in favor? And the motion's carried. Just one question about that inspection, that will be scheduled this year.
That's my hopes, is to have it scheduled for this year, yes. It has to be before it freezes up, so.
12.3 is OHV bylaw implementation. Sherry?
The traffic safety bylaw 012022 was approved by council on June 21st, 2023. Administration would like to highlight some of the changes that were included in this bylaw. Number one, definition of off-highway vehicles. 1.36.8 snow vehicles are now listed as an OHV. Section 205 alley parking restrictions are in place to set a time period for loading and unloading passengers and goods. This was put in place to ensure that residents could access their parking spaces. Section 307 off-highway vehicles. 1.1.2 allows for licensed OHVs to travel on the most direct route when going to and returning from activities outside the limits of the town. This is a new piece included in the bylaw. In the previous bylaw, only Skidoo owners were allowed to do this. Section 709, snow, ice, and debris removal. Residents cannot place snow, ice, dirt, debris, or other materials onto public places within the town or onto private property other than their own. This was put in place to prevent the placing of grass, leaves, and snow on the road, which can lead to safety concerns and also cause buildup of debris and ice on the grates, causing blockage of water flow. So we just want to highlight some of the things that residents probably may not have noticed in the bylaw that are new for this time around. Following up discussions with bylaw enforcement staff, as you know, on the August long weekend, the town was very busy with a lot of activity in town. And so I had a conversation with bylaw enforcement just to get some feedback from them to share with council. During the long weekend in August, there were many operators using their OHVs, and bylaw enforcement staff responded to several calls from very concerned citizens. The concerns were about the safety of the youth that were operating the electronic scooters, OHVs, dirt bikes, concerns about OHV operations within the municipal limits, and the speed that some of the operators were traveling. They had the opportunity to engage in conversations with the youth and parents to talk about the bylaw. Bylaw enforcement staff report that the majority of the residents responded very positively to the information they received. And so they felt that that was a success of the weekend. They felt there's a lot of misinformation out in the public. Many of the public perceived that they had permission to drive all around town and that they could go anywhere. So this was an opportunity to do some education. Bylaw enforcement officers have to determine if the operator is taking the most direct route to and from activities outside town limits, which can be challenging. And this was the case even with Skidoos, but they found that when Skidoos came into town, they usually parked at Queen's Park, and then they accessed the business and they left out through a farmer's field again, right? With OHVs, it's a little bit harder to determine where to and from is. And so they have to do a lot of discussion and a little bit of discretion when they're making those decisions. And so one of the things they said was exactly what Councillor Campbell indicated, is it might be helpful to sit down with us and to figure out what a direct route might be going out of town, just so that when they're dealing with some of the residents, they can do that education piece as well. But overall, they felt that after that weekend, where they received a lot of calls and they had a chance to do some education, that things went really well.
Thank you. Thank you for that information, Sherry. Do you think it would be advantageous to have a session planned so that the youth could come and the public could come and hear what the bylaw rules are and just make sure that everybody's on the up and up. But that particular weekend you're talking about, I did get an email from a resident quite concerned about it. And I reminded that resident that everybody can phone it in, and not too long afterwards, the folks were out to chat with the kids, and sounds like that was well received. So we knew there was going to be some growing pains with the change like this in our bylaw. And I don't know what the rest of council thinks. Put this forward, Deputy Mayor Wayne and then Councillor Lynn.
I'll admit the first probably month or so, there was a lot of bikes in the streets. Again, not understanding the new bylaw, but over the last 3-4 weeks, I've seen that tone right down. And because I see a lot of bikes coming from other sides of town in front of our house in the streets, and now they're going slower, they're going up the berms. They're not as bad as they have been. So it's a learning curve, and I think they're getting it slowly. So hopefully it continues, and hopefully they follow the rules.
Well, I probably had 20 vehicles go in front of my house. Several never even had shirts on. Several never even had helmets on. No plates, high speed. I tried to go out there and say something, but I'm not quick enough to chase them young fellas, and get their plates, but they ain't never even had a plate. So, and they were very disrespectful, to say the least. And this, I would only give them a one-time warning. If it happens again, we pull the bylaw and it's gone. Because this is a thing what youth will do, keep abusing and abusing and abusing, and mom and dad will take the hit for me. Well, that's not going to happen. I personally, I supported the motion initially and I thought it was good, but at present, I don't support it at all anymore. If we voted on it right now, I'd say, go back the old way, because I thought that was just horrendous. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lynn. Councillor George.
I think the bylaw is a good tool, but we have to put in place, have to consider the solitude of our residents. I live along 48th Avenue and I put up with the skidoos, I put up with the dirt bikes, I put up with the quads. This is an ongoing thing. Some of them go by quietly, but there's others that have to crank that old motor up just and give her. But right now, where the major flow from the east to the west is along the railroad track. And we have a residence right across the street from me. There's 3 people living there. And these people put up with not only the noise from the train, but the noise of this traffic every day. And there's people there that are working night shifts or shift workers. And we have to remember that these people need to have their sleep. We have to, and not be disturbed with this here kind of stuff. That's where I brought up, we have to have a designated route, not only for the solitude of the residents, but also for the safety of those people that are using these bikes. Like I said, the incident on the long weekend on Sunday, there could have been 2 kids killed there. Crossing the highway. I don't know what the answer for that is, but we have to, if we're going to have this bylaw, give people, residents the access, but we have to have a designated access that is safe and compliable with the residents.
Thank you, Councillor George. Is that something that we can work with enforcement agencies to see if we can come up with something to add to the bylaw and then bring it back for some changes?
Yes, your worship, I'll have it scheduled and some work being done.
Okay, do you need a motion for that?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. So for that report, we just need a motion to accept the report unless there's some more comments, questions, or concerns. Here none. I don't think we have a motion on this yet, do we? No. So would someone be willing to make a motion to receive this report as information? Councillor Ashley.
that the OHV bylaw implementation briefing be received as information.
Thank you for that motion, Councillor Ashley. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Councillor George. Councillor George, please use your microphone.
With that being said as information, could we have some kind of time frame on when the change, we can expect some changes or some feedback on the bylaw itself?
Probably October.
Okay, thank you ever so much.
Thank you for the question. So now that we have the motion, is there any other comments, questions, or concerns? Call for a vote. All those in favor? And the motion's carried. Now we need a motion to go back into closed session. Oh. 12.4, sorry, getting ahead of myself, briefing fall festival.
So I'm going to let Sherry and Dennis speak to this, but I am going to give you updated budget reports and another listing that Sherry got completed today that outlines who's supporting what project.
Sherry, you have the floor.
The town of Bruderheim and community groups are working together to provide a weekend of activities known as our Fall Festival. The date for this event was changed to accommodate the Model T races that will take place on September 2nd and feedback that we received from our ball teams that participated in the tournament last year. The parade registration form and the hold the date poster with the listing events that were confirmed was shared with all nonprofit groups, clubs, groups, industry partners, municipalities on July 13th, 2023. We continue to share information on social media. The new poster that is been, it said that was attached because I did attach one that went out with the council package, but we are providing you with the new updated poster tonight that shows who's actually offering the different activities. And so this will be shared on social media as well, a little after we talk about it tonight. So you'll notice that the fire department is doing the pancake breakfast. And then I'm going to just talk about who's doing what groups are doing events, and then the town would be doing the remainder. The strawberry shortcake, the Bruderheim seniors will be taking it on as their project. The Bruderheim Community Church is going to be taking care of the lunch at the community hall for all of our parade participants. The town of Bruderheim and the Ag Society are sharing the children's activities that are happening for the 2 full days. The Safety Codes Council, ATV Safety for Children, is a presentation done by the Bruderheim Ag Society. The beer gardens will be the Bruderheim Ag Society. The market and the museum turns are the Ag Society. The town of and the slow pitch tournament is the Bruderheim Ag Society. The town of Bruderheim is covering all the other events, which includes the scooter skateboard competition, disc golf, live entertainment, fireworks, the food trucks that are happening, and like I said, some of the children's activities and the petting zoo that will be occurring on Sunday. We had an event on Saturday for children's, and we didn't have nothing on Sunday, so we brought the petting zoo in on Sunday. I've also attached a kind of a bit of a brief summary of the events and the cost for them. So I put a costing for each one of the events as we went through. So for the town of Bruderheim, we have a parade, which will cost us about $100 for the ribbons. We have a lunch for about $400 to pay for some of the foods and beverages and the plates and whatnot to serve the lunch. The scooter skateboard we can talk a bit about right now is $1,750. And that is, the cost is because they would be bringing in extensions to the skateboard park to bring in more people to participate in the event. If we don't bring in the extensions, the cost is $750, and they provide all the prizes and run the event for us. So we can make a decision tonight whether we want to go with the $1,750 or the $750 for that event. The children last year kind of indicated that they would like the extension. They've participated on our skate park without any additional things added to it. And they would like to see more added for more fun. This year, Bruderheim Minor Sports brought in House of Wheels, and they did a lot of work with some of the youth in our community. I see a lot of people out there doing tricks. I see them flipping in the air and doing a lot of other things that's kind of unique. But we can make a decision about whether we want to go with the 750 or the 1,750 cost. The cost of petting zoo is $1,250. That price hasn't changed for 3 years. That's what they charge. The band that we're bringing in is $1,500. We have a band. It's nice to have some music before we actually have fireworks at night. It kind of keeps people at the grounds and keeps them involved. So the cost, if we keep the House of Wheels event for the scooter skateboard, is $10,000 for the town of Bruderheim. The Bruderheim Ag Society has some costs as well for the event. So for the Safety Coast Council, ATV safety, $500. The face painting and whatnot is $600. The slow pitch tournament is $6,000 in costs. There will be a beer garden. So of course that's going to offset some of the costs as well. But so it works out to about, if we had to just not have any revenue at all, the cost of this event is $17,000. When you take the two groups together that are working on this, and that's not taking into account the costs of the seniors component of what they're doing, like other organizations that are involved as well. In 2022, the cost of the event that we had was $11,664.02. So for the town of Bruderheim, the costs for this event is actually cheaper this year than it was last year. So I welcome any feedback.
Yep, Deputy Mayor Wayne and then Councillor George.
They're not a fee to participate in the mulch permit, that's not included in here as income?
We pay all that money right back out. So it comes in, goes right back out. Yeah.
And for prizes for the thank you. Previously, that was just some small gift cards for $25. Is that what they're consisting? Is that they're doing again this year?
So the House of Wheels, interesting, has actually partnered with the Safety Coast Council, Sports Council. And so they're partnering on the prizes this year. So they'll be a bit different, but I will definitely check and let you kind of know what they're doing.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I know last year some of the prizes were for pieces for their scooters and skateboards as well.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Deputy Mayor. Councillor George.
Where's the money coming from for this event? Is it through FCS funding or?
Councillor Campbell through Mayor Hope, sorry. This is part of the program budget that council approved back in 2023 when we approved our budget. There's money put aside for events for the town. And this is part of that.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Wayne.
So with doing an event like this, costing $10,000 to the town, what would that leave for future events like throughout the year? Because in the past, we've always done, 8 events kind of thing throughout the year. Is this going to shrink those down?
So Deputy Mayor, well, I go through Mayor Hope, sorry. So this is always the event that we put the most focus on because it's for all of the clubs and groups since in the fall, and it's our major event. And because we didn't have Canada Day this year, we have a bit of extra money left over. So there's still $5,000 for the rest of the events for the year, which would include our Christmas activities, rail safety. There will be a cultural event, Truth and Reconciliation.
So going into next year, obviously there's going to be part of the budget. Is it going to be increased? Is it going to be the same? Are we looking at events ahead of time to see what we're doing? How is that?
Go ahead, CAO Phil.
Thank you, Your Worship. This will be a heavy topic for discussion during your budget deliberations. At your next council meeting, you will be reviewing. So tonight you had service level review focused on corporate services. And I know that what Sharon and I do is really boring. It's just our budget. But Sherry is actually putting a list of all the projects together that community services does. And then when we get to budget discussions, there will be price tags attached to each and every one of those events. And you as council will need to decide which events you're going to hold.
Thank you for that.
Thanks for the question, Councillor George.
I don't see a gate fee on here.
Councillor Campbell through Mayor Hope. We have never charged fees for town events.
But is this a town event or is it an ag society event?
And this is a town event and Ag Society is doing some additional things to supplement the town event. That's why they're broke out separately.
CEO Phyllis.
I don't see this as either a town or an ag event. I think this is a community event when you look at the number of groups and individuals participating.
Thank you.
Just the question.
Thank you for the question. Is there any other folks from council besides Deputy Mayor Wayne and Councillor George that have any questions? Because they've asked 2 questions each. Councillor Dana.
Sorry, I just wanna, it was asked and it was brought for a breakdown of everything. If this is a community, just a all around community event, why did we need a breakdown of who's doing what if we're considering this a community event?
Your worship.
There was folks asking, what is the town doing and what is the Ag Society doing? And I know that in past events, what has been asked is, well, you should know if this is a town event or if this is an Ag Society event. Now it's quite clear that who's putting on what. So when folks ask, is the town putting this on, or is the Ag Society putting this on, or is the church, or who's putting this on? It's right there, the information. So it's quite clear for everyone to see. That's the reason. Councillor Ashley.
Dana, do you have your teams full for the slow pitch tournament?
Yeah, we have a waiting list starting up now.
That's perfect. Any other questions? Okay, I don't think we have a motion on this yet, so I'm looking.
One thing I should probably add is even though all this is broke up this way, everybody, all the clubs and groups are helping everybody, right? So just to let you know, we got volunteers coming from all different clubs and groups.
Great. And I guess maybe we could ask is how's uptake looking for the parade?
They're just starting to call in to confirm that they're participating. So keep passing the information on.
Okay, thank you. So in looking for a motion to accept this information, this presentation as information. Councillor Ash.
That the briefing report on the community fall festival be received as information.
Thank you for that motion, Councillor Ashley. Any comments, questions, concerns other than what was talked about already? Haven't heard none. Call for a vote. All those in favor? And the motion's carried. Now we can go to number 13.1, closed session. So we need a motion to go into the closed session. Do we need a comfort break first? Okay, so then we'll hold off on the closed session. Do we still want the motion right now? For the closed session? No, okay. Okay, thank you.
I make a motion to go home.
All
Wrap
in
down for the
favor?
night.